Media Network proudly presents a weekly exploration of various spiritual practices with renowned spiritual authors, coaches, teachers, and Dr. Tracy Brown, RScP.
And now, here's Tracy.
Tracy is here. Hey, everybody. It is Poetry, Prayer, and Practice with Tracy Brown. And every week we gather together and we spend a little time diving into a variety of spiritual practices. Poetry, is it a spiritual practice? Can you read poetry to be inspired in your spiritual practice? Prayer. What is it? How we use it? How we can use it more or better, get better at it, understand it, and all other spiritual practices, especially those that are not kind of the norm, right? Like, I know I'm supposed to meditate, or I know I should do a gratitude list every day. You know, there are a dozen things that everyone always talks about as their spiritual practice. And what we like to do is dive into those a little bit, but also share those practices that maybe are a little less common, or you're doing them and you don't even realize that it's a spiritual practice. Today, for today's show, we are going to focus in on an aspect of prayer. And I realized I hadn't done a show where we were thinking about, talking about, or exploring how to integrate prayer into our lives more fully in a while. And so today we're going to focus on an aspect of prayer. We're going to focus on prayer partners and what that's about. And I want to especially focus on what you need to keep in mind when you are selecting and working with a prayer partner. So we'll spend a few minutes just talking about what is a prayer partner and why might you want one, and then I'll dive into what is what I refer to as the MEET, MEET, MEET model, when you want to meet and develop a relationship with a designated prayer partner that you are going to work with over an extended period of time. And that will probably take us to all the time that we have available in today's show. So if you are with me live, I'd love for you to just chat in, comment in where you're dialing from. And if you have any questions about prayer partners, what they are or how to work with them, I'd love to know that in the comments as well. Or if you have a really effective relationship with a prayer partner, then get ready, because a little later in the show, it'll be a great opportunity for you to say what you like best or what works best for you in your partnership with your prayer partner. Ready? Let's dive in. So we've done shows where we've talked about prayer and the power of prayer, but every show we've done, it's been really the focus on the individual's use of prayer to accentuate and to affirm or to anchor in on something specific you want, or an individual wants, or we've talked about the steps of prayer in affirmative prayer, spiritual mind treatment. And we've talked about how the power of prayer is really, really grounded in the understanding that I can speak my word, I can claim a different condition in prayer, because I and the Father are one, that there is no separation between me and spirit, that when I am speaking my word, I am doing so in a way that influences the what gets created. It directs the flow of spiritual energy. All of that we've talked about. And so one of the things that is really important is to remember that when we start working with prayer partners, we are not only affirming our own truth, but we are working with a partner to affirm their truth. And of course, they are affirming my truth. And so it's not so much that you need 2 people or 10 people or 100 people to do prayer. The biggest benefit, I won't say the biggest, I will say one of the most important benefits of having a prayer partner is that you have a witness who is also affirming the truth that you want to experience. So, where 2 or more are gathered, there's 2 am I. If you are someone who has grown up with or studied the Bible, but the idea that I am clear and this other person is also clear, or number 2, and for me, this is the biggest benefit for me, but I would say it's in the top 3 or 4 benefits generically. Having a prayer partner often is helpful because your prayer partner is not in your story. They are not having your experience. And often my prayer partners believe more than I do about what I am asking them to pray for me or about me. Sometimes when we are starting on a new journey, or there is something challenging that we're facing, and we know that we can ground ourselves in prayer and in affirmative prayer, we are affirming that which we want. We're not praying about the situation that we're in right now that's so challenging. But, you know, a couple of months ago, I had surgery, and, uh, I knew the surgery would go okay, but there were parts of my brain, my human thinking, that were like, yeah, but what if this happens? Or, this is a surgeon you don't know very well, and you've only like met him once, and now you're going to let him do this surgery. And, what if he's not who you think he is? Or all of the human doubt or questions, or even, denial sometimes. And so to have my prayer partner be like, I got this, right? I got this. I know this for a fact. I know this about your health. I know this is your truth. I know that the physician and the medical team are this and that and the other. And to be so firm about it, I could say a prayer that was strong, but I'm still dealing with my human stuff. My prayer partner was like, whatever, you are not getting in the way of the demonstration on my prayer. And so sometimes it's really good to have a prayer partner. And I know for me, with people who are my prayer partners, there are lots of times when they want something and they do believe it can happen, but I don't have the doubt that they have. Because that's the doubt is the human nature. The doubt is the ego saying, well, look, I don't want you to get your hopes up. So two reasons to have a prayer partner: one, to have a witness who is walking along the path with you; two, to have someone who knows even more strongly than you do and will not be distracted about your good and how you not only can have and should have, but will have your good expressing. Three, it's really good to have a third reason to have a prayer partner is because when you, over a period of time, are sharing prayers, you can actually learn from each other and learn different phrasing or different examples. When I first started working with a prayer partner, maybe 15 years ago, I had had some prayer partners when I was very young, but then I went decades without a formal prayer partner relationship. So maybe 15 years ago or so, when I was getting back into the habit of having a regular prayer partner, not just having someone I prayed with, here and there, but a regular commitment. So 15 or 16 years ago, I remember that I was not really used to praying out loud for another person. And so I had three prayer partners and we prayed together on different days. And I remember being feeling so blessed to hear the way that different prayer partners expressed their understanding of spirit, the way different prayer partners used language to make key points. And it wasn't so much that I was like, oh, yeah, I'm going to steal that, or, oh, yeah, I want to say that. It was just very educational for me and very expanding or expansive for me. So I do think one of the benefits of having prayer partners is you get to hear different ways to engage with spirit or to describe spirit expressing in life or to connect. So I've had prayer partners who, because of their personal interests and patterns and habits, they just use their own life experience as an example. And so now I do know that, when I am praying for different people or related to different topics, I have an expanded vocabulary that works for me, not just because I'm copying them, but because I have embraced some different aspects that I would not have thought to use in prayer. Now, that may sound kind of vague, so let me give you a couple of examples, and then we're going to get into selecting a prayer partner. So, for a while, I was a prayer partner with someone who had two children, who has two children, a boy and a girl. And they were in school at the time. They were school-age children at the time that we were prayer partners. And I remember there was one day that she was praying for me. And the example that she used, or the metaphor that she used, was related to her son it's her son's involvement in athletics and a lesson that he learned, because of something that happened. and how what I was going through was simply a lesson being learned, like on my way to achieving X, Y, or Z. Now, it wasn't really that I would ever copy and use that example of her son and what happened to him in his athletic environment and team. But what it did for me was it showed me that, oh, what do I do? So there are times when I'm doing a prayer and I'll use an example of something that happened to me roller skating, and the lesson I learned from that, or the outcome of that process. Whereas before then, I would not have thought about, oh, I can use an example from roller skating because it makes this point, and then I can apply it to what I'm praying for with this person. Another example is one of one of the people who I prayed with for a while, had a partnership relationship for a while, was very much into nature, which I'm not, in specific ways. Like, I love nature in the big picture. I use all kinds of examples about the cycles of the seasons and, you know, big picture things about mountains and oceans. But this person really loves nature and spends a lot of time in nature. And so a lot of their examples were reflecting intimate aspects of nature that I didn't really know, but I could understand the way that she integrated those examples into prayer. And in that case, I actually did learn some specific ways to integrate nature, specifics about nature, about, oh, I do know that a flower has petals and a stem. And I do know that butterflies, go from flower to flower and pollinate, and that has such and such an outcome. It's like, oh, stuff I really didn't think about, because it's not how I spend a lot of my time, right? And even just a couple days ago, I was giving a talk, and this bouquet or flower arrangement that's behind me, I'm like, oh, let me use that as a physical example, right, of the point that I am making. It's like, wow. And I really do attribute my learning to do that and practicing it to the fact that I worked with a prayer partner who is very, maybe 75% of their examples came from nature. And that just was not, before being a prayer partner with this person for 6 months, it wasn't a part of kind of my natural way of approaching prayer. So those are some of the reasons why you might want to consider having a prayer partner, building your skill, having a witness, and actually practicing letting others hold your truth for you, or remembering your truth when you cannot. These are not the only reasons. But if once you've decided that you want a prayer partner, or maybe you are taking a class and they're requiring you to select a prayer partner, if you're not being assigned a prayer partner and you have the opportunity to select one, then I have some tips for you. So I use what I have labeled the MEET model, which of course is an acronym. What's your motivation? What do you expect? What's your experience? And time. How much time do you want to devote to this? And that when you have a conversation with the person you're considering being prayer partners with, that both of you can share this information to see if you're a good match, right? You want to be careful about just saying, "Oh, I've heard Tracy pray, and so I want to be a prayer partner with Tracy." Yeah, let's do that. Let's be prayer partners. And then you realize as you start in that you just committed to be prayer partners for the calendar year 2023, and 4 or 5 weeks in, you're like, oh, maybe this wasn't such a good match. And granted, you could have a great conversation and decide to not be prayer partners. But so many of the common challenges that happen with prayer partners can be avoided by being intentional about who you select and who you agree to be a prayer partner with up front. So let's talk about that. Motivate, expect, experience time. Motivate, expect, experience time. Motivate, expect, experience time. MEET, the MEET model. So motivate. What motivates you to create a prayer partnership right now? Like at this stage in your life or for this calendar year? Like, what's your motivation for wanting to be in a partnership with someone related to prayer right now? And there's no wrong reason and there's no right reason. It's just, what's your reason? And does that match or complement the reason of the person you are considering partnering with? So there's no right answer to this, except does it match my motivation, or does this other person's motivation complement my reason? So I have been a prayer partner with someone because I was in a class and we were required to have a prayer partner. And the prayer partner did not have to be in the class, but my motivation was, for the next 5 months while I'm in this, taking this course, I must have a prayer partner. So I'm looking for a 5-month commitment. That we may go beyond that, but right now I'm motivated to make a 5-month commitment to someone who is willing to do prayer. And I'm going to be focusing my prayer on this umbrella topic, because that's what the class is about. So I went looking, I talked to 5 or 6 people and I found the best match. So my motivation was, I was in a 5-month class where I was required to have a prayer partner. What did I expect to gain from this relationship? I expected to gain the more experience of praying with someone on a regular basis. I expected to gain from the experience, I expected to gain some insight into my thoughts, and I expected to be able to support this other person with whatever they were going through as well. So motivation, expectation, experience. As I was talking with different people, I shared my experience with prayer partners in the past, both the 2 or 3 prayer partner relationships I thought were fabulous, and why. But I also shared one of the experiences that I had that just didn't work for me at all, because if the person I was going to partner with, that's what they were thinking, then, I needed to say up front, I've not been a prayer partner with you before, but the worst prayer partner relationship I have in the past, this person and I didn't click because of A, B, and C. So we give them a really good out. if they approached it the same way, they could just say, I don't think we're going to be a good match. But I gave my experience, good and negative, positive and negative, as information. And I asked them the same thing. If you've been in a prayer partner relationship before, tell me the best of the best and the worst of the worst. Because even if I tend to be doing things that you consider the worst of the worst, at least I know if I commit to be in relationship with this person, then I'm not going to do those things. So motivation, expectation, experience, and time. So in this same example that I'm referring to, we had to talk about how much time do we want to devote to this, and the time of day or week, and do we want to commit a specific amount of time? So for that particular prayer partnership, I was looking for someone who was comfortable committing to pray together once a week. I needed it to be in the evening Central Time because of my schedule, and I wanted them to commit to a 1-hour session because every time we met once a week, and there might be a few exceptions, but that for me, the time piece was because, and for me, it was, I knew we didn't need a full hour to pray. But I wanted, with my prayer partner for that course, I also wanted to be able to have time to talk about whatever the key theme was for that week with someone else who was spiritually grounded and who was not in the class. So our prayer time actually took usually 15 minutes or 20 minutes. But then we also had a conversation about whatever the topic was for that week. Now, there were a few weeks where the prayer time actually took 30 minutes. And we talked less time, but most of the time it was 15 or 20 minutes for the actual prayer. And then we also had time to hear two different perspectives on whatever the theme was for that week. I have had other prayer partner relationships where for a time we agreed to pray together one time a month. And I have had a few prayer partner relationships where we prayed 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So I do know people who have prayer partner relationships where they pray with their prayer partner every day or 6 days a week with the same person. Now, when I was doing the relationship where I was praying with someone Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I actually had a different prayer partner that we prayed every Tuesday and a different prayer partner that we prayed every Saturday. So I actually had prayer with someone else almost every day of the week on a schedule. But it wasn't the same single person. So that's why it's important that in the MEET model that we talk about the time up front. I have had prayer partner relationships where we literally adopt 15 minutes and we say, we are both going to pray. We are going to pray for each other. We're going to jump on Zoom. Tell me what you want prayer about. I'll tell you what I want prayer about. That'll take 5 minutes at max. And then, hello, how you doing? What's going on? And what do you want to pray about? And then we each have 5 minutes to pray for the other person. And we are done in 12 to 15 minutes every time we meet. So you have to determine what's important to you and then find someone with whom your motivation, your expectation, your experience and your time preferences support one another. So that's the MEET model, MEET, what motivates you to create a prayer partnership right now? What do you expect to gain from this relationship? What's been your experience with prayer partnerships in the past? And what are your time needs or desires? That is that's the MEET model. I don't know. I hope it's helpful for you to be thinking about that and um, to hear about some of the ways that has showed up for me. Now, when I have shared this before in different settings, people often say, okay, well, I get that, but that's kind of awkward if it's somebody I don't know really well. Like, you mean I should go interview somebody before I agree to be their prayer partner? And my answer is yes. Yes, you should interview someone. And with the technology that we have, right, it doesn't matter. Maybe Shay is in Colorado and wants to partner with Fiona, who's in Geneva, Switzerland, right? Or maybe Linda, who's also in Colorado, might want to partner with somebody who is with, Reverend Gina on the network, on the New Thought Media Network, who is in Boston. Technology allows us to be able to partner with people all over the globe. And there may be times when you are really craving a prayer partner that you can meet with, who you can meet with face to face in person. And in that case, right, then you're looking for someone in your local community. But yes, I highly recommend that you have a conversation. Now, you might think of that as interviewing them, but keep in mind that they are also interviewing you. So let's do a little something here. Let me give you some questions that you might ask. And I know I'm not looking at you. It's because I'm pulling up a document on my other screen to help you think about some questions that you might ask. So let's share a screen over here. So when I think about the MEET model, and that's still pretty small, let's see if we can zoom it up a little bit more so you can actually see it. It's pretty good, but let's make it even bigger. So you see at the very top, selecting a prayer partner, and it's the MEET model that I talked about. And I laugh whenever I say that because I say MEET model and it sounds like MEAT, but it's MEET, right? So common questions that I think about that make it easy to make it feel more just like a conversation and not an interrogation. So, why are you interested in having a prayer partner? I might ask someone that. And obviously, I'm going to share with them why I am interested in having a prayer partner. Why are you interested in partnering with me specifically? And I have asked people that, and I've gotten some very, very interesting responses, many of which I could never have anticipated. Now, some of the ones that for me come up because I am often on the platform, if it's local, people will say, well, I've heard you pray on a Sunday morning, or I've come to prayer after service and, was randomly assigned to you. And I had a really, great demonstration. Or Tracy, I was in your class. I was in your foundations class, and I really began to understand prayer. And I want to practice with you. I want to be in prayer with you, and I want to learn from you. Great. But I've had people give me reasons I never could have imagined, especially people who are not from my local CSL Dallas community. I once had someone invite me to be their prayer partner, and their primary reason was because they are someone who is African American, but there are like only 3 African American people in their church, and they were looking for someone Black to be a prayer partner with. And someone gave them my name, and the person who gave them my name I knew, but of course I didn't know this person, and they didn't know me, except they had been referred to me. I've had someone say they were interested in having me be their prayer partner because we share the same first name. And I actually ended up being that person's prayer partner. But when they said that, I was like, oh, well, that's a random reason, but it's as good a reason as any others. And because of the other conversation we had, right? So you never know. It's always good to know, why are you interested in partnering with me specifically? Have you ever had a prayer partner before? And what was the best thing to come from that relationship? Right? You could ask that. And, I like the one beneath it as well. From previous prayer partner relationships, what do you want to recreate? And what do you want to release? This one is really important because, again, it's what I said earlier in the experience. You're trying to ascertain if this person's past experience, like what worked for them and what didn't work for them. And am I the kind of person that if we're partnering, it's going to naturally flow that the things that work for them are the same things that work for me, or the things that didn't work for them are things that, yeah, I kind of do that. And so maybe this isn't a good match. Other questions that you can keep in mind, right? We're looking at time. So how often do you want to meet? How long do you want to meet when we do meet as prayer partners? Do you prefer to meet in person? Which I will say that nowadays, when we say in person, we have to clarify. Do you mean in person on Zoom versus being on the phone? Or do you mean in person in the same physical room at the same time, not the same virtual room? Because I literally do think of my Zoom meetings as we're meeting in person, right? We're together at the same time in the same place, just not physically. So you do want to clarify that. And then you want to, like you can tell, I did this original list a long time ago: comfort with meeting by phone or via Skype. And of course, now I would say via Zoom, or, Google Meet, or Messenger, by video. There's so many technology options. Do you prefer a scheduled time or a spontaneous meeting? Now, this is an interesting one because I know for me, I need to have a time on my calendar. We can move it, we can change it, we can agree to skip it, but my calendar gets away from me. So I would never personally commit to a spontaneous relationship if we were committing to speak once a week or once a month. It would have to be on my calendar. And I know a lot of people who have prayer partner relationships where they just text each other and say, hey, need a prayer. When are you available today? Or, hey, I'm available for the next 4 hours. Do you want to jump on the phone and pray, or jump on Zoom and pray? And it works for them. But the way my calendar works, I'm not able to do that. But you might be able to. So it's a valid question to ask. Is this a relationship where we want to schedule our time, or do we want it to be more spontaneous? And is there anything you have concerns about related to being prayer partners in general? Or is there anything that you're concerned about being related to having a prayer partner, or being specifically a prayer partner with me? So these are just some examples of questions, the kinds of questions you might include in your conversations with your potential prayer partners. Where do you find your prayer partners? I think we'll end with that. I've talked a lot, right? 35 minutes about being a prayer partner and what that is and why you might want to do it, and how you might refine your conversations or shorten the list. If you have a list of 10 possible people, how do you get that list down to the 1 or 2 people you really want to partner with? But sometimes we don't even know where to look. So of course, number one, if you are part of a spiritual community, it's always good to find someone in your spiritual community who's, been hearing the same Sunday talks, or who has attended some of the same classes. Many of the people I know, their long-term prayer partner relationships came from or reflect a person or people they met when they were taking a class together. And then, 5 years later, they just continue to be prayer partners. So that's an easy place to look. If you are in centers for spiritual living, one of the things that I have seen be successful is for people who participate in CSL conventions, or even some of the general meetings like the monthly connection call. I've seen people post in the chat on some online meetings, hey, I'm looking for a prayer partner, once a week, anyone interested? And then they'll private message each other so that they can, connect via email or phone and have this kind of conversation. And so if you're not in CSL, but you're in Unity churches, kind of the same thing. Anytime there's a gathering, whether it's online or whether it's in person, like that's an opportunity. It requires making the first step, saying, hey, I'm looking for a prayer partner. Anybody willing to have a conversation with me? Anybody else looking for a prayer partner? So that works. The other place, which is so easily accessible, if you are on Facebook or Instagram, you can use social media in that way as well. And that then becomes a broader audience throughout a broader network. And if I were to post on Facebook, for example, I'm looking for an additional prayer partner, I would probably say some of my answers to the meet model. Not all of them. I wouldn't be writing a whole paragraph like, creating a job description. But I might say, I'm looking for a prayer partner who is available to meet once a week for the next 6 months. Because for me, I'd want to have some commitment of time with that. Like, are you talking about you just want to do this for a couple of months? Or are you looking for someone who's going to make a commitment for the whole calendar year? You know, because you can always re-up, but what's the initial period? And I will give you a tip that for me, almost every time, not every time, but almost every time that I have created a prayer partner relationship with someone I don't know, like I don't really know much about them. And we're, especially when we're not in the same community where I'm not going to see them all the time, I usually with a new relationship will say 90 days. If we're going to meet weekly or bi-weekly, I'll say, let's do a 90-day trial period. And I have said I'm looking for someone for the whole calendar year, but let's commit to a 90-day trial period where we're both seeing if it works. And then at 90 days, let's make the commitment for the remainder of the year. So anything like that just makes it easier for you to feel comfortable that you're making a commitment that you won't regret. Any of those things can be negotiated. So I hope this is helpful for you. It's really helpful as a reminder for me to be thinking about this. And I am really glad to have today's episode or today's show focusing in on an aspect of prayer that we don't really think about. Definitely, we don't talk about often enough. So if you've had a great experience with a prayer partner and you can say, yeah, it was great for these 1 or 2 reasons, feel free to drop that in the comments. Or if you had a disastrous prayer partner experience and there are 1 or 2 reasons why, feel free to put that in the comments as well. But mostly, I just want you to think about what is the potential for you to have a great prayer partner relationship. So my name is Tracy Brown. Every Tuesday at 12 noon Mountain Time, we come together and talk about some aspect of poetry, prayer, and practice. Today happens to be the last Tuesday in June. I want to give you a little bit of a preview. In July, a couple of the shows are going to be focused on poetry and what it does to inspire us, or how it can inspire us in our spiritual deepening. And also how poetry can be a spiritual practice. And then I've got a couple of surprises. In one of those episodes, one of the shows will be introducing a newly released book that I think you'll want to know about. And so, yes, I am teasing you. I'm giving you just a little bit of information, but not quite enough. So watch for the announcements, and I hope to see you on a Tuesday real soon. And remember, if you cannot watch live, you can always watch the recordings, both on the New Thought Media Network Facebook page, the New Thought Media Network YouTube channel, and you can watch many other programs throughout the week to make sure that you are managing, supporting, and deepening in your own spiritual journey. Thanks for joining in today. My name is Tracy Brown, and I'll see you again soon.
Thought Media Network proudly presents a weekly exploration of various spiritual practices with renowned spiritual authors, coaches, teachers, and doctors. Thanks for watching. Join us again next week, or watch on demand at www.ntmedia.org or youtube.com/New Thought Media Network. New Thought Media Network, positively inspiring. Learn more at www.ntmedia.org.